I love when the left uses, it's about empathy. You have no empathy. Where was your empathy when the Biden administration accounted for 400,000 trafficked children at our border? Where was your empathy when Clinton signed NAFTA and thousands of Americans lost their jobs immediately because manufacturing went directly to Mexico instead of the US? Or the other 300,000 employees that he fired in his term? Where was your empathy when Obama deported more non-criminals than criminal illegal immigrants all 8 years of his presidency, every single year on the dot, by the hundreds of thousands? Where was your empathy, because I must have missed it, when Clinton used Guantanamo Bay and you call Trump a Nazi for just suggesting using it for the worst of the worst criminals, which you guys just inherently leave out? Where was your empathy when Biden fired 10,000 pipeline employees on day one of his presidency? Where was your empathy when Obama fired 197 DOD employees? I didn't hear it. Where was your empathy for fascism when our DOJ released 1,099 pages of evidence of the Biden administration pressuring Meta to censor their media and ban doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers from sharing their opinion on the COVID vaccine? I guess my point is both sides could be empathyless. Both sides have a tendency to be hypocrites. Both sides have a tendency to only use their morals when it pertains to what they want it to pertain to. It is selective and it is performative. Meaning that not one singular American has any right to speak down onto others about their morals or empathy, because at one point or another we were blind to something that mattered due to our bias. And I hate to break it to the left, but apparently spending months allowing your presidential candidate and everyone else that follows them to call people Nazis and stupid and garbage, trash, that doesn't really get you votes. It's also funny because you guys are the party about talking about all the rhetoric, but allowed that to happen like it was no big deal. Guess what? As it turns out, no one's listening to your anxiety about empathy, because we are tired of hearing that if we don't directly agree with where you're putting your empathy, we are a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer or a see you next Tuesday, or you have blood on your hands, you murderer. Eat bullets. I hope Luigi finds a copycat and gets you. I've gotten, you look like you're gonna get deported. Go back to where you came from. Show everyone your papers. You're not white. You're not one of them. As if that's not the most inherently racist thing anyone's ever said to me. Of course, it's coming from the left, always is. When you treat people like they are criminal trash just because they don't directly align with you, it kind of makes them stop listening to you. And I feel like we learned this in the early ages of elementary school. And it's a big reason why GOP ratings are rising and Democratic approval ratings are falling by 65%. The Democrats have a 65% unapproval rating. That is the lowest it's been in the last 20 years. And instead of reflecting as to why you might have a hand in that, you will screech at us like it's our fault, as if you're not the one sitting there preaching about empathy and then in the same breath saying the most demoralizing, demonic, and hateful thing you've ever said to another human. I mean, it's rich, the party of empathy, telling other women to get raped and die and have a miscarriage just because they voted for Trump. You don't have empathy for all beings. You have empathy for beings that are just like you, which is why no one's listening to you anymore. And instead of us joining you, we're just going to continue to progressively hate you more and more as time goes on. It's called narcissism, when you talk down or treat people horribly because they don't see your way. It's narcissism, textbook. You use morals as an excuse to have none, and people are tired of it. And everyday working average Americans are not listening to you anymore. And that's definitely not the way to win future elections. You want to turn this country around? Get off your high horse. Because if you actually cared about yourself and Americans around you and women and children and people being fired and reform, do you really think, and we learned this at a young age, do you really think the way to do that is to make enemies out of 100 million American voters? Do you think that's the way to do that? Of course it's not. So this means that you would rather be right and say something hateful to prove your point than actually make the change you're preaching about wanting to make. You want people on your side to join you. You want to persuade Republican voters or independents to vote for you and vote with you and hear the importance of what you're preaching. Maybe don't call them a fucking Nazi, because I promise you that is the way to close their ears off even more and boost that 100 million to 150 million. Your old tactics don't work anymore. We saw this in this election, and we see this every single week as surveys continue to come out that GOP's up and DNC is down. So reflect on that and leave our empathy or lack thereof the fuck out of it.